So today, I get to talk to you about the unexpected power of an invite and how powerful invites can be. And we know from that video that invites from people that know us and care about us usually go a lot further than just random invites. And so I want to talk to you about what your invite can do. Put a smile on someone's face. It can change the trajectory of their life. It can encourage them. It can get them through a rough week or a rough patch. And so an invite can be very powerful. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that concept today. I remember when I was a kid one time, and it was a big day. It was in the spring, I recall. And I went in to school, and everyone was abuzz. You know those days when everyone's abuzz about something? And so they were all abuzz. And so I was excited and like, what are we talking about? And they're talking about one of our mutual friends, which I thought was a really good friend of mine. His birthday party was coming up, and he was going to a place that sounded magical, a station of celebration. It's called Celebration Station. And they had go-karts, and they had bumper boats, and they had skee ball, and they had arcade games, and they had some kind of thing you could get hooked up in and flip on a trampoline. And I was like, this sounds amazing. When are we going? When is your party? Everybody's like, oh, this party's going to be great. And I was like, wow, when are we going? When are we going? And they said, oh, well, you're not invited. So I told AI about this feeling, and it generated this image from my childhood. It said this was me, dejected. There's little Clark. Got the eye color wrong, but anyway, I didn't have a picture of that day, so I had AI generate this. But I remember this, like, it's an intense, hurt from my childhood. I remember them talking about it and being so excited, and then like, oh yeah, well, you're not invited. So apparently he had a limit, and I didn't make the cut. It's kind of like when they were picking teams sometimes, and they're at the last couple, they're like, oh, I don't know which one of these I want. And you're like, that one, and you're like, oh. Well, that's where it was in the party. So I didn't get to go to this super cool party. I remember another party I didn't get to go to because it also had a limit. And they came back talking about this party at the best place in the world. And there was this clown that came to their table, and his name was Ronald. And they each got a Happy Meal. And they had this amazing, magical McDonald's cake. I didn't get to have any of that cake. Are you just feeling terribly sorry for me yet? I mean, goodness, this poor kid never got to go to any birthday parties. No, I went to a ton. But anyway, I do recall in thinking about invitations, the crushed feeling from knowing others were invited, but also knowing that I was not, that I was excluded. And exclusion is one of the most painful feelings as a human. Whether you're excluded as a child, or you're excluded as a teenager, or you're excluded from something as a young adult, or even as a grown adult, being excluded is painful. But the counter to that, the antidote to that, is including people. Because inclusion and invitation feels overwhelmingly enthusiastic and overwhelmingly encouraging and overwhelmingly warm and welcoming. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about when Jesus taught on this very topic. Jesus worked with fishermen a lot. And the fishermen knew that in order to survive, they had to cast their nets out, and that's how they fished. They threw these big nets out, and they would drag them in. And if there were fish in there, they were going to do well. And if there was nothing in there, they were not. And he talked to fishermen who were particularly down on their luck, but this is their trade. This is what they do. This is what they know. And so Jesus spoke to them in language they would understand, not overly theological language, not language of the highly educated, but Aramaic language that they would understand and phrasing they would understand. Now, if we took a survey in here and I said, who likes to fish? Some of you would say yes. You like to fish? Anyone like to fish? I have a love-hate relationship with fish. I like the process. I hate the fish. They avoid my bait many times. But fishing is particularly a practice in patience. You have to be patient. Now, you can learn to fish better, but at the end of the day, there are many variables you are not in control of, you are not in charge of. And so much of fishing is learning to be patient. You also know that many times you have to switch up your bait. And more hooks in the water means more fish are coming out of the water. Well, Jesus, in talking to these fishermen, kind of used the language of fishing to turn it on its edge a little bit for them. And he said this in Matthew 4. He said, "Come follow me, and I will show you how to fish for people." Now, on the surface of that, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Like, we're going to go out there and throw nets on people? I mean, that's what, the first read of that would be. That's why it's important to understand context in the Bible, because he wasn't saying we're going to go throw nets on people. He wasn't saying we're going to go drag and make you scuba divers, right? He was teaching them a different way to think about fishing. That in fishing, what they did, they threw nets out into the water in order to capture and to gather things together. In fishing for people, they were going to go out and share the good news, and they were going to work to collect people together, to create community for people, to show people that God was for them, that Jesus was on their side. And the church, over the last 2,000 years, has taken this moniker on and has become more and more serious about this. Now, the church was so small when it started, when Jesus was teaching, that there's no way that it could have grown to where it is today, almost 3 billion people, without a lot of fishing. Like, we're not a faith that sits back and says, well, what will be, and who will hear, and hopefully they figure it out on their own. No, our faith and our teacher, Jesus, said, you go and you tell them and you give them an invitation. And that's the key, that they're included. Everyone is included. Everyone is welcome. But how do they know if they don't get the invitation? It would be the same thing as having a birthday party, being all upset that no one's there, but you'd never sent out one invitation. Doesn't make any sense, does it? So we've got to be inviting. And recent research has shown that about 63% of folks that go to church on a regular basis are actively inviting people to sit with them in church. It's just a smaller group that's not every 6 months at least inviting. They said it goes up when you say who's invited in the last year. But the most active folks that are inviting, about 63%, are saying, yes, I understand this is a part of my relationship with Jesus, is not to keep this to myself, but instead to make sure the people in my life that I care about, my family, my coworkers, my neighbors, my classmates, maybe a barista friend of mine, maybe someone that cuts my hair, maybe someone that I have a relationship with, that they know as well that they are welcome. Because what a crime it would be for them to be sitting at home today thinking they're not welcome here. And yet we know from research of the unchurched that many of them think they're unwelcome in church. Because of their past, they think we're all perfect. Whoever that was, thank you. Yeah, what a joke, right? Yeah, no, we're not perfect. I do remember one person saying one time about the church being filled with hypocrites, and someone responding, well, you'll fit right in, come on then. We only have one requirement at Coffee Creek. There is only one bar for you to attend our church service, and that is that you not pretend you're perfect. We got no room for people that pretend to be perfect, right? None of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. No expectations of perfect. Perfect people are not real. There's no such thing. And so we have work to do in order to make sure people in our life that we love and care about and are on our mind right now know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they are welcome. Now, the question you may have, and I think this is an important question, is, okay, Pastor, if I step out on a limb and do that thing which scares me, which is to invite someone to church, what is the likelihood? Because I think that's probably a calculation we're all doing. We're like, look, if it's 10%, I'm not doing this. I'm not going out on a limb. It's too much of a risk for me. I don't know what is on the other side of the risk. I know there's a lot of fears that we build up in our head, but at the end of the day, we do want to know, what's the likelihood someone would say yes And so there's been a lot of research done on that in the last few years. I read a book done by Lifeway Research that said 82% was their response rate. People that responded positively to invites. We know that we have about 10 families almost that have already planned their visit for Easter. That's over a week out. That was yesterday's number, so I don't know what it is today, but that's over a week out that have already planned their visits that do not have a connection of any kind to our church. We have many more who have connections. Maybe they know someone, maybe someone's invited them, a family member, a friend, that are planning to attend Easter Sunday with us. So we know there's a great chance at Easter in particular, because it is culturally so top of mind, there's a great opportunity to make sure the people in our life that we care about know that there's a place for them, that they're welcome. A lot of people, it really helps them out to know that there's a place where they're welcome, where they don't have to put a suit on. They don't have to go to Men's Warehouse and buy something to wear, right? Most of us are going to be pretty much the same we are today. We're not that kind of church. So if you grew up in church or a different kind of church, there's a lot of misconceptions that it's going to be like a funeral or a wedding and you got to put on a tuxedo or something, right? There's a lot. And honestly, there are people that are like, well, I don't have anything like that, so I'm not going to go buy something like that. And it's like, no, my invitation to church to you is not a bill for $300. Like, my invitation is come as you are. Come as you are. Come in what you're comfortable in. We always talked about, because I'll have people ask me that when I talk about, inviting people to church in the community, they'll be like, well, what's the dress code? I love that question. Like we're a high school or something. Like we got some kind of dress code. I'm like, well, we'll check your shorts when you come in, and if they're long enough, and we let you in. No. I always just say, look, we just want you to wear clothes. Like, please come clothed, but there's no dress code. Like, you have to look a certain way. And then beyond a stated dress code, there is kind of that, will I fit in the way I look, the way I dress? Because you don't want to go somewhere, right? Like a restaurant, like you don't want to walk into a fancy 5-star Michelin restaurant in cut-off shorts and flip-flops, right? Like you would feel out of place. So it really is important to let people know we're a blue jeans kind of church. Like, they're welcome to wear what they would like to wear. They're welcome to be comfortable, because there's a question of, would I feel out of place? And most of us that attend here or have been here for a while, I'm almost been here 15 years, we don't even think about that anymore. Did anybody stress out about what you were wearing to church this morning? Likely not. But people do. And they're thinking about that. And there's some of them, like their heart, they're being drawn to church at Easter. And something has got a hold of them, work we didn't do, but work God's doing in their life. And there's something drawing them. They're curious, right? They want to know a little bit more. But there is a roadblock. For some, it might be, I haven't had an invitation. We'll look at stats on that in a minute. For some, it might be, I don't know if I have anything to wear that's appropriate. So you could just blow that out of the water for them by letting them know, look, whenever you talk to them, look, this is church clothes. Like, it's not a big deal. Come as you are. Now, some people wear a dress on Easter. Some people wear a suit on Easter. And I always tell people that I'm inviting to Easter. I'm like, look, there's not like one uniform method of dressing at our church. So there will be people in jeans and T-shirts. There will be people, if it's warmer out, T-shirts. If it's cooler out, they'll have longer shirts on and jackets. Like, who knows? It's Oklahoma. But, there's not like one dressy way you have to be. And so to let them know that is really important. The other thing I think is important is to not, when you come to invite someone to church, to not think you have to have all the answers. Some people have told me they have difficulty in this moment because they're afraid like they have to be a biblical scholar. Like they have to have all these degrees, or they don't know enough about the Bible, or they don't know enough. And I'm always like, come on, you know enough. But even then, I want to show you in the scriptures what happened when someone felt like they didn't know enough and what their response was, and what I think you could say very quickly and easily. In John chapter 1, Philip is looking for Nathanael. He's excited to tell Nathanael about Jesus. He says, we have found the very person Moses and the prophets wrote about. His name is Jesus, the son of Joseph of Nazareth, from Nazareth. And so what you have here is someone who's had an encounter with Jesus. Like many of you have had an encounter with Christ. He's changed your life. And he's excited about that. And he wants to tell his friend. But his friend is skeptical. His friend says, Nazareth? Can anything good come from Nazareth? And instead of arguing in that moment, Philip just says, come see for yourself. I love that. There's no argument. There's nothing to prove. There's not a hard sell. There's not, if you've ever done sales courses, like all the objections they give you and then how to respond to objections, you say, no, I don't want your product. Well, I can hear what you're saying, but quite frankly, you need my product. All these ways to respond. Nothing like that. It's just come and see for yourself. Okay. You're saying he's not for you. You're saying this isn't for you. Maybe just come and check it out for yourself. And he leaves it at that. And guess what? Guess what happens? He does. He plants that little come see for yourself, and that gets in there and it just grinds him and he goes, oh, I better check it out for myself. And so this is how you could invite someone. Just to say, hey, I don't have all the answers, but you know what? I think you should check it out. But guess what? Barna Research, who does research on religions out of California, his research has shown that 7 out of 10 people in America who are unchurched, he did unchurched research, 7 out of 10 unchurched folks have never been invited to a church service. Now, that's not weddings and funerals. We're not counting like being in a building. We're talking about inviting them to a regular Sunday service. 7 out of 10. That was astonishing. It was 73% was the exact stat. That was astonishing to me because you think in America, everybody's invited to church. And they are, but as far as a personal invite from a friend or family member, 7 out of 10 unchurched folks have not been invited. What would it look like then if we were the people to invite them? One of my favorite scriptures on this is in Romans 10:14. It says, how can people call for help if they don't know who to trust? And how can they know who to trust if they haven't heard of the one who can be trusted? And how can they hear if nobody tells them? It's a series of questions intended to spark, they're rhetorical questions, but it's intended to spark thought in our minds. What if we were the people that pointed people to Jesus? What if we were the people that helped them hear, that helped them know who could be trusted, so that when they have need, they could call on Jesus for help? What if we told one person this week, one person, you are welcome at Coffee Creek? It sounds good. And I bet if I took a survey, could you tell one person this week that you're welcome for Easter at Coffee Creek? I bet everybody would be like, yes, amen, cheer, woo, woo. Arsenio, never mind. You don't remember that. I bet everybody would be affirmative on that, right? We all have the best of intentions. But once Monday rolls around, when I show up to your workplace and ask you, who have you invited? And you'd be like, what? Did I agree to that? Right? We have good intentions, but we forget so many times. And so you and I, when we really make a decision to do something, there's something that we do for a next step. When you want to get healthy, what do most of us do? Many of us now go to the App Store and download a calorie tracker or a food log or a diary for our diet, and we create a diet and we use an app to track that. I know that when I started this diabetic journey, I was tracking every morsel of everything. I don't track anything anymore because I've got a pretty good sense of it, but like anything, if I looked at a food, I was like, I wonder how much that is. And it helped me tremendously get a grip on, whoa, I was overeating, and wow, weird, I got diabetes. Like I realized the volume of what I was eating was crazy. And the volume of sugary drinks and sweet tea and all that stuff. And so like I had an app. I used the MyFitnessPal app and I tracked religiously. When you want to get your money under control, your finances are out of control, and your spending is off the charts, most of us now look towards a budgeting app because we know that that can help us. And when we do financial peace things here, there is an app that we typically promote. People have great luck with, a budgeting app. Some of you, you say, hey, I want to walk. I want to walk 10,000 steps a day. I don't know why we've picked 10,000 in our culture, but we have. And so you have a fitness app, and it tracks your steps. And you're able to log that over time, and you can see little charts of where you did good and bad. And maybe if you're like me, your watch yells at you when you don't walk enough. It's like, well, yesterday was bad. You going to get up today, Clark? And I'm like, yeah, sorry. Some of you take medication on a regular basis, and you get a reminder on an app to take your medicine. You log it every time you take it. So, if we want to be invested in other people's lives, we want to be people that invite them, we want to be people that pray for them. Now, I started something in January called Bless With You, and I said we were going to talk about it throughout the year several different times, and that we were working on something, and it was under kind of the beta process, and it finally launched last month. Been testing it out. I'm finally ready to start talking to you about that it's ready for prime time. And that is an app for those of you that want to take this journey a little bit further, that you want to hold yourself accountable for praying for your neighbors, for serving them, for eating with them, for listening to them. Those practices we talked about, beginning with prayer, listening, eating, serving, and sharing our stories. The blessed practices. So this app is ready. And I'll talk about it today. I won't talk about it next week, but you'll get a text message if you're on our texting list. You'll get an email this week about it. This is the app, and it is in its final version, and you can get started with us. It is free to you. We have a subscription through our church, but it's free to you to download and to use. And basically what we're looking to do, and I'm the only one in the program right now, so you'll see me in there when you get connected to the church. And then as we grow, you'll see more and more added to it. There's a button in our church app today, Church Center app, you can click, or you can scan this code. It'll take you there, or you can go to that website. And you'll get the link and email and everything if you don't want to do it right now. But basically, you type your address in, and it will show you the homes around you, and it has your neighbors' names of all the homes right around you. And so I think I picked 40 homes right around me. And so every day I get an email. You don't have to get the daily email. You can tell it no email. You can tell it once a week, whatever. People pick different things. Monday through Friday, I get an email in the morning, and it has given me a different grouping each time of my neighbors and says, will you pray for these people? And it even has a sample prayer written. And if I am able to pray for them right then, I spend time in prayer, and I click the button that says, I prayed for them. And it tracks that, okay? In the app, I get an alert because I have set that up. It asks if you want that. I have an alert set for every day at 10:14 a.m. Romans 10:14. Yeah, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd like that a little bit, all right? So at 10:14 a.m. every day, I get a reminder to pray for the folks. And if I haven't done it through email, it's the same list. I'll get there, and I'll pray for them. And then I'll click the little pray button when I'm done. And that goes into the list. Now, that's not shared outside with anyone, except it will be shared in our little church group that we are praying for people. But like your account is separate from the church. You have your own account. And what they call people that are doing this are lights. We're trying to be the light of Christ across neighborhoods. And so the cool thing is there's new services that just got done last month, like I was talking about. So this mapping system allows us to see what homes have been prayed for. If they take a next step, like they show up at church, we can click that, and it'll track that in there as well. When someone moves into our area, a new person moves into our area, I'll get an alert as the church administrator of the account. You'll get an alert if they are close to you, and that will let you know that we have sent them a postcard to their house, welcome them to church. But you could also knock on their door or would be walking by with your dog or something and mention that, hey, I'm with Coffee Creek Church and just wanted to invite you. That lets you know what new neighbors are in your neighborhood. Some of your neighborhoods don't change that much. Mine does a lot. And so like over the last month, it's just been like wild. Like, here's a new one, here's a new one, here's a new one. Moving in, like once a week at least, I'm getting a new mover. And so you'll get those things. And then the more that we connect our neighborhoods, the more of us that are in this, doing this together and praying for our neighbors, the more that we cover of the community. So we'll see our map kind of go from, right now it's very small, we'll see our map connect, and you'll see the church in there as well. You'll see where the church is in relationship to your neighborhood and the other neighborhoods that are being prayed for. You can't like click on and see details or anything about that of other people's neighbors, but you can see that we're covering a wider geographic basis. And so the cool thing about that is what does that do? Well, that adds accountability, doesn't it? It's just like the trackers for your steps. It's just like your budgeting apps. It's just like your tracking calories apps. It gives us a little accountability and data by which we can encourage one another to pray for our neighbors, to be serving our neighbors, to be listening to our neighbors, to look for ways and opportunities to invite those specific people. And these are the people that live right around you. So I want to encourage you to, when you get that email, to think about joining in our Bless program. So 2 ways we can be intentional, because the most recent research that was done on this is in 2018, before COVID, but they said what churches are seeing unchurched people come into their church, not people from other churches. They call that transfer growth, trading people, right? That's going to happen from time to time. But what churches are most effective at finding folks that feel like they're unwelcome, unchurched, and inviting them in? What churches are most effective at that? And they found out the basics and being intentional of these 2 things. Number 1, inviting the unchurched. And we're like, duh, but there's a lot that don't focus on that. So if we want to be a church where they're welcome and we see unchurched people, we have to be inviting. And the second thing was to be nice to the unchurched. And again, you're like, this is not rocket science. And I agree with you, but it's so easy to get mixed up in so many other things. This was done, this research showed no matter what size of the church, whether it was a small church that's under 80 people, whether it was a medium-sized church that's 80 to around 400 people, or whether it was a larger church of 500 or more, all of them were seeing growth when they were intentional. It didn't relate to the church size, the budget, or the location, because all churches that do these fundamentals are able to see people coming in. And so, how can we major on the majors and not get mired in the minors? Well, at Coffee Creek, we want to realize that everyone is a friend just waiting for an invite and a warm welcome. And I want you to see the people in your life like that. Coworkers, neighbors, classmates, students. People that are worthy of God's love, that God loves, that Jesus has died for, and that are welcome in his church. Friends, not foes, not the others, not outsiders, but people that are just friends that need 2 things. They need an invite and a warm welcome, and we can be a part of that process. No outsiders here, just friends we haven't met yet.